Welcome to Baseball Biz on Deck. Mr. Matt Germain's here, and I'm Mark Corbett, but Mr. Lou Schiff isn't here. Daggone it, Lou. We were waiting for you, man. We had a big party going on here, talking about your book and everything else. And, Matt, I hear he's got something else going on.
Yeah, when your family's about to receive a new member, you kind of want to be there. You want to be, part of the group that greets that little being into the world. And we don't blame him at all. We wish him all the best with this huge event in their lives.
Indeed. And I tell you what, Lou's always welcome here. And I can't imagine, well, I just can't imagine excitement. I had it about 8 months ago, our first grandchild. So we wish the Schiff family all the best. And uh, I know he'll be smiling more than I've ever seen him before. It'd be bigger than any time of anything we've ever seen of all time. No. Okay, I'll cut that.
How do you think he's going to spin it that if it's a girl that the name still has to have Lou in there somehow?
Mm.
Oh, it's going to be like Betty Lou who?
Ooh, Louise. Yeah, there's all kinds of possibilities. You know, are they such baseball fans that they would find a name for a player that they might put in there? I don't know.
Or a
You,
lawyer that's been part of baseball, more than likely.
well, because that's what we were going to talk about tonight. He'll be back soon. He has a book out right now, and it's about the Hall of Famers that have made it, who have also become lawyers. So probably not necessarily in that order. Yeah, I became a Hall of Famer. I thought to get a law degree. No, it is really interesting. There's one that I really enjoyed reading was about Tony La Russa. I mean, mostly because I guess he's from around this area and all that he achieved. There's some great stories. So I look forward to talking with him about those.
Mhm.
But one of the things I want to ask him when we get him on here is which baseball player, maybe I should say this, but we'll play it here, you and I. Which baseball player right now do you see out there do you think should become a lawyer?
Oh man, that is a tough one. A lawyer. You know what? Aaron Judge.
Ooh.
Because if he's going to become an actual judge, you got to be a lawyer first. That's the route. That's the road. So, yeah, I think Aaron would be intimidating in that seat across the way from you, and he still has the kind enough eyes that any witnesses or anything going on, he'd be able to smooth them over with a sly smile and a nice nudge and wink sort of thing. And then I think he'd be good. He's got the smooth talking voice.
I like that. I come back closer to home, and I think of Pete Fairbanks because I think of the piercing eyes, looking straight at whoever, if he's a judge, of looking down at whoever who's speaking to him, whether it be the plaintiff, the defendant, whoever. I mean, he's going to be right there in front of him. But then you got to remember, he is actually a very giving and loving man because who is the Roberto Clemente nominee from the Tampa Bay Rays? Pete Fairbanks. The man I jokingly call the assassin just because of his eyes when that closer is up there in the ninth inning, bringing the game to an end. But we got to get him on the show. You and I've talked about this before because he's going to be judging some things real soon. With the CBA coming up.
That's right. So he's been part of one before, so he's been there and done that, and he's got some lessons learned from that ordeal, I imagine. But yeah, I'd be really curious to see what he would be able to tell us in terms of what the priorities are overall, because things morph and they change over time, and
Oh yeah.
things that we probably don't even hear about are actually prominent within a lot of players' minds. I'm always baffled by the fact that a lot of what seems to get out in press, it really addresses or pertains to like 10 to 20% of the players because it's the breadwinners that get the benefit of the majority
Right.
of the work that's done. Whereas the 80% of the players are actually, they're still a significant part of the league, right? And you would think a lot of their burning issues would get addressed just as highly and be talked about just as intensely. So you're looking at right now everybody's talking about the salary cap, right?
Yeah.
Salary cap is the issue. It's the one thing that everybody, Players are adamant they're never going to allow it. It's never going to happen. And the owners are almost, teetering on the edge of we're not signing anything that doesn't have it in there.
Yeah.
So, like that gets all the play. But then there's a multitude of issues beyond that we need to talk about.
Well, I hope we get him or somebody else like, Pete on here. But I just want to mention too briefly, last week I was at the Tampa Baseball Museum, and lo and behold, I get a phone call, and this gentleman says he'd like to come in. Plus, I have somebody with me. I said, "Well, who is this?" He says, he gave me his name. His name's Tom Purcell. Tom, forgive me if I said your last name incorrectly. But the gentleman he's bringing with him is the son of Roberto Clemente.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's right. It was Luis Roberto Clemente. And they were in town here in Tampa to receive a donation from the Hard Rock Casino, the Seminole Hard Rock Casino. And they knew we were close by. I wanted to see what was what. And it was really cool to meet him, man. To be there and you shake hands with history again, right there. And this, you wonder about somebody who's achieved so much like Roberto Clemente.
Mhm.
And you got to wonder in life what is their legacy? The legacy is what that family, what baseball is doing beyond that. And that means that they're continuing to give back to the communities. One of the things that they're doing is it's called Little Legends. Little Legends 21. So, there's Roberto's number. And it's about working with young children too, a very, very young age, and helping giving them support and direction and strength behind them, so that they're not, I guess, take away some worry in their life. There's a lot to it more than that, and we'll have to have somebody on here from that organization sometime because to me it's encouraging to see that kind of action being taken. So there are a lot of great things that can come from sports, with the right people out there. So I want to say thank you to Luis and Tom for visiting, and we will have them on the show here in the future.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I'm ready to go out there, man, and help them. It's like, okay, what can I do to help too? After you meet these people, it's just so engaging and you want to be able to go out and do something with the kids too. So I'm going to find out. I mean, there's things around here with the Boys and Girls Club, and Tom had actually been with them, but prior to this. But this is something I think after he had actually retired from MLB working with the Boys and Girls Clubs. And then it wasn't long says, "Hello, this is the Roberto Clemente Foundation. We're looking for somebody." And they found him, and it looks like it's working out real well for both of them. So I'm happy to hear that. Oh, let's see. Was there anything else happening this week? Man, it seemed like, geez, I'm trying to remember. Oh, Tampa, Tampa, Tampa. Oh yeah, we've lost a Major League Baseball field this week. It's gone. I've got to go over to George Steinbrenner Field and see if they're taking down the 3,000 pieces of marketing that they put up at the beginning of this season for the Tampa Bay Rays.
I want to hear about what the Rays left behind, hidden somewhere, to jinx them, right? That's what I want to hear. Like, what are they? The little voodoo doll somewhere, a
Hmm.
little coin that's whatever it is. Like, I don't care. I just want to hear the story eventually from the Rays that they did leave something behind that is supposed to bring some misfortune to the Yankees, right? Because that's the only opportunity you're ever going to see in baseball where you literally take over somebody else's spring facility or whatever it is that they end up playing in. But I uh I like the fact they started off there with a win, they ended with a win, they had a higher than 500 record. I think most people believed that they would have a hard time adjusting from the trop to there. But hearing from Brandon Lau and a lot of the Rays, they loved playing on real grass. And
Yeah.
and for a lot of them, it kept them healthier. So it begs the question, what are they going to be like next year? And are they happy to go back to the trop? Like that's the big question I'm wondering.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody would say that they're happy to go back to the trop. I think that it is going to be seen as just a bus stop, from one bus stop to the next. And it's something we're just going to have to do for a year or two. And because we're not going to be able to grow a stadium right away. With a new ownership, things will probably take hold quickly. One thing I've told you a little bit offline, I'm doing a lot of research on stadiums. And I'm looking at the history of what the Rays have been through. My gosh, ever since Stu came in, um, he was looking toward the future. And they had the one that they were looking over in Ybor. They were looking at one over in St. Pete at Al Lang. And there's been a couple of more over at St. Pete and yet another visitation to Ybor in Tampa. So I'm going to assemble some things on that. And I'm hoping that the new ownership can move quickly on a decision for a new stadium. Just saying, I want to put it here. Start with that. Just get that point done. They're talking about placing it near George Steinbrenner, almost adjacent to it, with the Dell Mabry Hillsborough Community College campus over there. I don't know how it's going to play out, Matt, but those are some of the variables in play.
Yeah, I have to believe that with the connections that they have land-wise,
Yeah,
that they have more opportunities available to them than Stu did. So I think that's what they're gonna lean towards, lean on to actually get something done.
yeah,
And like we said before, I think we've said this a couple of times. I don't expect it'll take very long. I think there's already, hands in the jar, and they're gonna grab a cookie pretty soon. The big question is really is how many more years are they going to spend at the Trop while this build is going on? How much can they speed up that build? So I anticipate they'll have to sign an add-on lease to the Trop, which is
mhm.
probably the only reason that the St. Petersburg was happy to, go ahead and fix that roof. I don't know if anybody's done any air quality tests inside the Trop because that mold issue with all
Yeah.
that stagnant water would be, kind of concerning as well. But it's hopefully they've added the drainage that they need in case anything were to happen again. But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to also hear, you never know. Maybe there's a way where this new ownership can say, you know what, we're going to move some of our affiliates around and we're going to put somebody in the Trop. So for instance, if they put their high A team in the Trop, and then they move over to Tampa, co-locating. It makes a longer use of that Tropicana site. How that fits into the St. Petersburg plans for development, that is the big question there, right? How many more years does St. Pete now, who are honestly probably going to have to pivot, how many more years do they want a tenant in there? Or do they just want to tear down the Trop when the lease is over? At which point, Steinbrenner Field could come back into play again,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep.
So I'm not closing the books yet completely on Steinbrenner Field. I think there are still reasons that they could end up having to knock on that door again and say, "Can we please come in for one more year?"
Well, I go back to what you were thinking earlier on about let's just take Steinbrenner Field over. I mean, just go ahead and make modifications. It's simple, it's quick, and would you use Steinbrenner for both your spring training and for your regular season field?
I don't
Does
see why.
anybody do that?
Yeah. I mean, as long as so it depends right now, like you were talking about your research you're doing for stadiums.
Hmm.
So looking at around at the stadium builds, what have they been? They're not just the stadium. They're the community around the stadium. So that's what the genius was behind Ebor, because
Yeah.
Ebor had that opportunity to grow a whole community around it that could actually become a bigger business model than just simply a stadium and make it a year-long attraction. Um, I think that's the way of the future. It's just to be like concessions, whatever restaurants go in there should be accessible from the outside so that you can use them year-round. Um, all the facilities in there, whether they're weight rooms, whether they're you want to add a museum in there, you want to do whatever it should be seen as amping up the community overall. And I think when you're looking at Fenway, I think that's why it'll never move or change or and the outfield will never get extended, is because that whole street is full of bars where people, it grows the ambiance around the stadium and it makes it a community feel when you're there and you have something to do before and after the game.
No, and that's I think what a lot of people liked and what St. Pete liked about the Rays Hines proposition. they were looking at building a whole business development around where they didn't have as much. And pardon me. So that makes sense to have that. That makes sense. The whole gas works project in the Ybor channel side made sense. I got to watch out though, because when I talk about gas works, WORX, and then there's the gas plant plan, which is over in St. Pete. So, folks, if you hear those words being used, double check whoever's delivering the news, which one they're actually talking about. Oh my gosh. Well, here we are. I want you to read for me your post earlier this week about excuse me, on Blue Sky, uh, about the investment that Stu Sternberg made and what it reaped as far as what he could put in the bank.
Right. So I think we need to also add to that post. Stu Sternberg was worth about $800 million when he bought the Rays. So he wasn't a billionaire yet, right? So he takes a chance on the Rays and pays, up to $200 million, which was what was estimated. And nobody knows exactly what was included in there in terms of a percentage. But over time, he adds a little bit to that slice by buying out some minority owners. We don't know the exact details. A lot of it is because a lot of those minority owners feel like they got fleeced and they ended up having a lawsuit go up against Stu Sternberg. Eventually, they settled, I think, in 2024 about that lawsuit. They came to an agreement. Nobody knows all the financial details and whether or not anything was paid out. But anyways, it gave him security over the fact that, yes, the stakes that he did hold are his. So 200 million is down a tad bit more. But then, in 21 years later, he sells them for $1.7 billion, despite not getting them a stadium, despite having nothing concrete, in play in terms of a deal, having destroyed every single one that he ever came up against. He ends up with 1.7 billion. So $1.5 billion over that 21-year span ends up being $71 million a year, or 71 and a half, pretty much. And then that's not even including the annual profits that he raked in from owning the Rays, because they were getting MLB competitive balance transfers. They were getting lottery money. They got TV deals where every single owner ended up getting, I don't remember what it was, $50 million each from that big deal that they had, in 2023. So, he's raked in so much money. So from this deal, or he's going to. And then he still owns a minority share. We don't know exactly how much that is. But you stand back and you think of it from a, if I was sitting there and I had $800 million and somebody told me, okay, with that $800 million, you can make $71.5 million a year for the next 21 years, right? That's an insane return on investment. You're talking about averaging just under 10% a year of your net worth. And so there aren't many investments out there that can actually do that and make it. Him and Jeffrey Loria will go down in history as two of the most successful investors in Florida businesses of all time. And they kind of prove the concept that, franchises, a lot of times, if they are hot potatoes, and you get to walk away and enjoy the money. So I'm curious to see what he does with that $1.5 billion. Plus, he paid off that 200 million. So let's make it 1.7 billion that he'll be sitting on. And I'm curious to see if he decides to reload and be part of another ownership group down the road.
That's interesting because I'm curious. I hadn't really dug into one part, but and I haven't even, pardon me, I haven't even confirmed this, that the part of the deal was that the Rowdies were also part of this sale. So that means Stu would be divesting himself of both the Rowdies and the Rays.
So
And go
yeah,
ahead.
the curious part of the Rowdies is does he envision, MLS role or MLS feeding role basically for the Rowdies? Mhm.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about too. And there's a lot of change going on around here as far as soccer slash football. We've got that has been part of the development over in Ybor for the women's soccer, and being able to put together a stadium around that and the whole business thing, because the developer who was going to be putting all that together for Ybor and the race, has had to kind of pivot a couple of times, figuring, oh, I'm going to be doing it with the race. Oh, now I've got to find something else. Oh, the race want to do this now. So there's a whole lot of movement going on, and we're not going to get into the long journey today on the Rays Stadium, but I do want to salute Stu Sternberg for a great investment. I'm sending my 401k money to him right now, and maybe he can do a little better job for me than I've done. Uh, but I got to say, man, it's been practically a an activity, if you will, for people to say how much they hate Stu over the years, and I've enjoyed watching this past week his attendance at the game, his enjoyment of the game, his playfulness with the game. He was out there as the ball boy on the field this week and out there at George Steinbrenner, and I loved it. You know, he's he's not taking himself as seriously as some other people do in this world. He's and enjoying it. And the I believe that the tip of the hat from the team was heartfelt. Um, they within that organization, they see a person that fans don't see.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I've had friends in the past say, "Yeah, well, he's a real SOB at work, but he's my neighbor and oh, he's a good guy. Go out and play softball with him." You're saying he's an SOB because of this, that, and the other. I didn't know that. But Stu, I think, is genuinely loved by the people closest to him in that organization. And I was happy to see him departing in a very positive manner.
Yes. He brought a lot. Well, just look at how the Rays are viewed across Major League Baseball. He brought respect to the franchise
Yeah.
in all variety of ways. He brought respect to the front office by hiring the very best and making them the in demand of the league. He brought respect to the team because of the record. He's one of the top five records as an owner over his time. How, like with the budget, regardless of the budget, just look at those two facts. Best front office in Major League Baseball, bar none, because they get poached left, right, and center. And they're top five in Major League Baseball, knowing all the money and efforts that go around in Major League Baseball to get to that level, right? Just those two facts alone make it, you can complain about certain aspects of anything Stu Sternberg did, but the respect and allowing the fact that everybody is welcome at the stadium,
Yeah.
regardless of whatever, group they're part of, race, ethnicity, language, it doesn't matter. They were welcome. He had events put on. He had, some miscues on certain things, marketing wise, especially when it came to the aggravation of the stadium issues
Yeah.
constantly. And then the St. Petersburg, the tiffs that he had with the mayor and Rick and yada, yada. Like all of that nonsense was all, uh, a business guy trying to work his position into the more prominent of the two, depending on which one you're talking about. So I think there's a lot to learn from his journey with the Rays. Like even for him, he would admit he probably learned a lot along the way. Would he regret any of it? Not if you're walking away with that much money. And not if you had all that success. He took him to the World Series. He had 5 years in the playoffs in a row. He got, and Major League Baseball that changed three or four rules because of how they operated.
Yeah.
Like that's how significant he empowered the team to actually compete in whatever way they had to. So I'll definitely miss that side of it. I'm curious to see what Matt Silverman and Brian all do next. I'm imagine that if there's expansion, somebody will look at Silverman as a potential, addition to their team. Um, it'll be interesting to see, if Nashville comes calling and a couple of others, because Dombrowski doesn't seem like he's going to leave Philadelphia and go back to Nashville.
No.
So yeah, there's a lot to like about the Sternberg era, and I think the history will be kind to him.
I think so as well. Like I said, it's few owners are loved by their fans. And they never agree with everything that they do. I mean, it's part of the friction and part of the fun, quite honestly, of the back and forth, sitting at the bar, talking to the guy next to you as you're grabbing another group of peanuts and throwing them in your mouth, and being able to say, "Oh, this is great," or "Oh, that's terrible. What in the world were they thinking of?" And but Stu, like you said, he's leaving the team better than he got it. He's done a lot for the community. He's not been afraid to stand up for organizations where other people shy away, whether it's be supporting something with pride and that sort of thing. And it's like, I respect that more than you know. I mean, to me, that says so much more about a person off field that that to me is where we really get measured. So for that too, thank you, Stu.
Yeah, and I'll leave you with two other things on this subject. One, how do players talk about the organization when they leave?
Mm.
Right? They all rave about it, and they all would love to come back in most cases, right? And number two is the I don't know. Maybe I'm just sentimental because it's one of those things that I've been monitoring so closely for so long. But if you're looking around at the other owners in Major League Baseball, right? How many of them would you have actually preferred over what Stu has done over the last 21 years? Like, are there any out there that are, so great? They're such a great owner that you're like, oh, well, that guy
Yeah.
definitely gets it right or whatever. Like, so those things are what stand out to me. There is nobody else through his era that I would say, you know what, I need that owner. Personally, because I monitored Toronto before, I would say Alex Anthopoulos is one that I would say, okay, I enjoy the way he operates, but it's not an owner. This is a front office guy, right?
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, I think that it's going to be interesting to see how fans like the transition, how smooth the transition is. If they don't have success right away and people start leaving the front office and there's disgruntled things as they're waiting for their new stadium, the tides could turn very quickly against any new owners. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, we will, and this it's interesting. I was looking at the new owner, Zalupski, and I may not be saying his name properly. The name kept tagging at me, and I was thinking, where did it come from? And years ago, with like a Tampa Sports Authority, there was a gentleman who was leading it up, and his name was Zalupski, but I don't think it's the same family per se. But I kept thinking there's some kind of connection. I got to do a little bit more homework on that and find out. But he's actually from Jacksonville. He's wanting to stay here, which man, that's always good news. Uh, I don't.
That's another question I had was, do you think he tries to make Jacksonville their AAA affiliate?
Mm,
That's an option. That way he already has a rapport there. He already has the stadium, everything else. I'm almost positive Durham being what it is, the Marlins would not be opposed to doing the swap. So that's something to throw out there as the potential, change to the operations. That way he doesn't have to relinquish his ownership or stake in that organization either.
I like that. That would be neat. Yeah, we'll have to talk with Lou about his Marlins when he gets back. But going to the minor leagues for a moment, we'd like to talk maybe about a fellow we had here a couple months ago, Mr. Kevin Bowes, manager for the Montgomery Biscuits. And they are what is it the third game in a championship series they're playing at right now?
That's what they're doing. And TJ Nichols is on the mound and trying to lock it in. I think it's going to be an all hands on deck style game because a lot of these guys are worn and a lot of them, want to get into the game. Like Austin Vernon has come back from AAA and is part of that group. So is Ty Johnson. There's a lot of firepower in that pen, and it's a winner take all tonight. So for anybody that doesn't know, it's a rematch of last year's championship in the Southern League, which Birmingham ended up winning. So hopefully the Biscuits come out on top tonight. I'm monitoring the game here on the side, so Will Simpson has been the hero so far, and he just singled, so he's still having an amazing playoff. I think his OPS now is 172. So when you're up near 2000, you're having a
Jeez.
heck of a series.
And how are the Rays doing right now? It's Wednesday night, by the way, folks, and they're playing the Orioles. Um,
Couple of interesting thing on the Rays. The Brandon Lau hit a home run tonight, and it was his 31st, and he's 31 years old. So he hit his number.
It is age. That counts, brother. That's great. Wow. I know I've been watching Junior and I got a Junior Caminero, and I've got to wonder in that young man's mind, how close he is to Carlos Pena's number. I think Junior's at 44 home runs this year thus far, and I
Yeah.
think Carlos is 46. And it's like, does it become something that's in front of your mind every time you go up to plate? Or are you still just the same cool guy you were, mid-season?
Hey, I don't know. Junior, yeah, it's definitely on his mind. Oh, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's eyeing it up. So if anybody that doesn't know, tonight, including tonight, there's 5 games left of the season.
Hmm.
So you've got 4 more. I haven't looked at the pitching for the Orioles and the Jays, but here's the thing. The Jays are going into the playoffs. So usually what that means is that there's some finagling of pitching staffs, right? Like you're burning up the back end of the pen that you may or may not carry on your 26 man roster. So I'm leaning towards him at least reaching 46.
Mm.
Don't know if he gets beyond it. It would have to be, the right situation. And I had called that he would get to 51, so or 52. I can't remember which when
I
you had
think, I know,
asked.
yeah, I don't think he said 52. My mind this morning, I was remembering 50. Maybe you did say 51, but because I was saying, dag, man, I was really looking forward to him hitting your number. I just remember that. I was saying, geez, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Well, maybe in the Orioles Park, maybe out there at Camden Yards, you'll be able to do it. Oh, that's right. They pulled that daggone fence, stands back, didn't they? He had where you had a shorter distance. I think it was over left field, maybe, and they moved those boxes back. I don't
Oh,
know. We'll see.
Jake Mangum just hit his third homer of the season.
Ooh, I love that guy. I mean, there's things about him. I look at him, I think Joey Wendell about being able to place him just about anywhere, the intensity that he plays the game with. And, we want to see that with all their players, but to me, it is just outstanding to watch him play with the intensity and commitment to the game. Just huge.
Yeah, I think the other nice thing to point out tonight, and I know he had some rough starts, especially late in the season, but Shane Baz finished off the season with a no hit 3 walk effort over 4 innings, and he
Hmm.
struck out 3. So the no hit part is really nice to see from him. I didn't look at the velocity to see if he still had the gas, but all I want for Shane right now in the offseason is a healthy offseason. Please keep, bubble wrap him, put him in the freezer, do whatever you got to do to keep Shane healthy for next year so that he can be part of that staff.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my goodness. Well, as we're coming to the close of the season,
Mhm.
most folks will tell you the big decisions aren't made until then. So the new ownership decisions being made now. And then the confirmation a lot of us thought was going to come is next year, ABS, pat tap on the hat there for whether or not calling into question balls and strikes. I don't know. I don't know that I really like this one. I've agreed to virtually everything else that's come with the new rules and all this. And I just like the ability for the umpire to determine where that strike zone is from their perspective.
Personally, it's my pet peeve, Mark. The umpire strike zones is my pet peeve. It's the one thing in the game I absolutely hate. And I'll tell you why. I've seen it ruin careers.
Yeah.
I've seen it amp up careers that didn't deserve to be amped up. And I don't think it's right. An umpire is usually somewhere, above 55, 60 years old, needs glasses, can't see half the time, and you're asking him to judge where that pitch is breaking at 100 miles an hour. Give me a break. We have the technology now to actually get this right. It's time to just they gave him the two challenges. I'm like, give him 12. Give
Oh,
him 12 challenges, no takebacks, no whatevers, however they want, because all I want in reality is the majority of those tight calls to be called right. And it's so fast now. It doesn't slow down the game barely at all. They do it, they go, yeah, it said this, that's it. They move on. If you watch it in the minors, it's a blip. It's faster than the automatic walks to first base. So just get it over with and stop ruining people's careers. Like you're a rookie, you're making your first start, and the umpire knows it, and he's behind the plate and he's squeezing you for every ball and strike. And he's like, you haven't earned this. Well, I'm sorry, but that's horseshit. It's like you just shouldn't have to earn balls and strikes. They should either be a ball or they should be a strike. End of freaking story. This whole madness about saying the human element. I don't want the human element if it's going to lead to bad decisions. Throw it out. It'd be like saying if I don't know, the we have automated driving, we can cure all accidents around the world, but we're not going to put it in because we like the human element of driving and people falling asleep and driving into your lane and running into you in the middle of the highway in the middle of the night. Like like we've put in you've driven, Mark. You have the little alert that comes up beep, 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 when you're going into the other lane and there's somebody there,
my
right?
wife does. Yeah, I got my car's too old.
What evidence has that prevented from happening?
Yeah.
So imagine we didn't use that, right? Like but what's the human element of driving? You know, I don't know. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, no, take
Oh,
all the powers. I don't. The umpires have a tough enough job as it is to do other things, right? It's fine. You don't have to do unhumanize the entire game. But balls and strikes, the velocities and the amount of movement. Can you imagine trying to call a Mad Brash's slider and know when it crossed the plate? I mean, that thing drops like 14 inches. What do you really? You're going to tell me exactly where that broke and went across the plate? No, you're not. I don't care who you are. You can't make that distinction. It moves too fast. And especially when you're crouched down behind somebody trying not to get nailed by that ball. Like, I'm sorry, it's just not that. I'm surprised, Mark, that it's 2025 and it's taken this long to get here. Like, that's what I'm surprised about. I was ready in 2004, 2005, watching the New York Yankees and Red Sox put on 4.5 hour games because of these balls and strike issues, right?
oh Lord. Yeah. Well, how many times could you step away from the plate back then, too? I
Oh,
mean,
that was,
I mean, Yandy, who I love, Yandy, he was merciless about that too before we had that in place. And oh gosh.
yeah.
Oh,
And Poppy Ortiz had this whole,
oh.
stand back, look around, brush yourself off, pat the belly, the glove, whatever. Yeah, it's
Oh.
ridiculous.
No, I know. And there's yeah, some things needed to change. And this continuity will help. But we'll see, man. Let's
I got on
see.
my soapbox for a minute.
Oh, I like it, brother. Keep it lively. Jeez, give some perspective. It's not yes or no, hot or cold. Well, maybe it is a little hot or cold on that one.
I remember, and I can't remember I want to say it was Dustin McGowan, who he was a hot pitcher for the Jays, but there was another pitcher that had come on, and I can't remember the name for the life of me, but I clearly remember he was going up against John Schmaltz or somebody else that had like all the veteran aura around him. And for some reason, the pitcher he was going up against kept getting calls, kept getting calls, kept getting calls. And the rookie that was on the mound was getting torn to bits, and we never saw him again. He had one start. That was it. He got, I think he got through 1.2 innings or something like that. And I had followed him through the minors, and I was like, this kid can do it. Like he was just demoralized by all of the calls that were going against him. You could see him
Yeah.
gritting his teeth on the mound and shaking his head and getting angry. And you're like, why is that happening? That should not be a part of the game. Yes, overcoming adversity by all
Mhm.
means. But you face enough adversity as a pitcher with them trying to knock your head off of a spindle, right? Like that's enough adversity in itself. So take it easy on the pitchers, give them credit where it's due. When that ball crosses the plate, by all means, give them the strikes so that they don't have to go crazy on the mound. And and if you're not going to allow the managers to kick sand on the umpires, they shouldn't get to make the calls. That's my other thing. So if the managers aren't able to vent and get it out, then take the calls away from the umpires. And I'm happy with the way they're easing it in. I do think it'll grow over time, sort of like some of the other things, going full out. And I think they said, which I like, that they took the players' interest into account when they made that decision
Yeah.
instead of going full, ABS, which that I think would have been a mistake. You would have had a lot of pushback, and then the CBA fight that would have came out of it would have been a lot about that as well as other things. It would have been added on to the pile.
We've definitely got to find out more about the CBA and what the players' their concerns are in the future here. I really want to get that on. Threw in there in the middle of all that, mentioned Yandy Diaz. And man, I tell you what, these last few weeks, I've enjoyed the Rays more than ever just watching Yandy, if nothing else. I mean, Jonathan Aranda has been out of circuit because of injury. God bless him. I still can see that image of him on first and John Carlos Stanton and him reaching over to get him out. And that just looked so painful. But Jonathan was just right on the way, and that we're looking at what is the batting average and the on base percentage for Yandy has been phenomenal. I think he's right at 400 or over with it, just even the average right now. And he has just been outstanding in watching what that man can do when he comes up to the plate. And it has to energize the rest of those players. We've talked before about the seniority of having Brandon Lau and Yandy on there to be leaders for this group, but the performances he's given, goes above and beyond just being a leader on that team.
Right. Well, so you brought up really good points where what impact has Yandy Diaz had on Jonathan Aranda's development? What impact has he had on Junior Camaro's
Mm,
development? And how many years did the Rays benefit from his presence and what he passed on to those players, over time? You're looking at 6, 7, 8 years, depending on how much extensions they get, maybe more. So like his legacy is going to be a really, really, really positive one with the Rays.
yeah, yeah,
Whether or not he's able to stick around even longer, I think he loves Tampa. He loves the area. He loves, where he is, the team. I don't think he's seeking other employment like in other teams. He's a professional hitter. He's hit what, 25 home runs. He's hitting 300. How do you rate value that across Major League Baseball? And how does the new ownership decide to play that? He's going to be 35. Historically, bats really start to slow 36, 37, 38. So how much money do you want to dedicate to that for a DH slash first baseman? But Yandy's played really solid D as well.
yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting what they decide to do this offseason. Do they decide, okay, he's passed on what he needs to pass on. Now we can, because the Rays are all about maximizing assets. Do they decide to dangle him to a team that's really going for it next year? Right? Like, the Padres, for instance, would be a team that I could see saying, knocking on the door, you know what? We really want Yandy this year because we're sick of the Dodgers. We want to knock them off. Yada yada yada. Something like that, right? Um, but the package would still have to be really solid for a player his age, making a decent amount of money because he's put himself there. So I don't know. I think it's going to be very hard for the Rays to not maximize that investment. And Brandon Lau, I mean, I would say at least one of the two sticks around. Between Brandon and Yandy, one of them I imagine will stick around, but I could see the other moving on.
Yeah, I mean, you and I were talking when trade season was around with deadlines, we talked about both those gentlemen and we talked about Pete. And fortunately, as a fan, I'm glad to see all three of them are still there. And I think with what we were able to bring up from some other trades, what we've had in the system and the young people, I mean, there's a dearth of good players in the farm system and bringing up, as you've talked about time and again. And hey, give us another glance here at the Biscuits. What's going on with the game right now?
The biscuits are right now still 0-0, and TJ Nichols, was able to get through two unscathed. I think the hits are coming like in small amounts on both sides. So I think the biscuits have one, and the other side has five. But they've been spread out enough to not allow any scoring. He's thrown 53 pitches so far, and he's managed to keep them from crossing the plate, but he's got two on and one out right now. So he's
Hmm.
getting in trouble.
Oh, wow. Well, we'll see. But we wish Kevin and the boys, all the good fortune they can have because I know he's worked at it. He's been great about developing talent. And, I still have to think when you're talking about Simpson with the Biscuits, because I know we got Simpson with with the Rays, another Simpson, in the system. So that's pretty cool. Oh my gosh. Any other nuggets we should be thinking about, Matt?
I just want to point out the playoff picture. Like, um, the I think Rays fans right now obviously are thinking about next year, but you should also want to monitor, what is happening in the league and how teams are winning and why teams are winning, and also cheer on another team that's going to be part of the playoffs, just to be a part of it and actually, enjoy the process and hopefully see somebody that you half admire at least, right?
Yeah.
And up hoisting a trophy. So, when I'm thinking about the last places in the wild card, right now there's one in play that is very intriguing. So at 81 wins are the New York Mets, at 80 wins are the D-backs, and at 80 wins are the Reds. So I'm thinking Terry Francona, like you're sitting there and you've driven this team, which, they've had a lot of obstacles thrown at them this year and before. If he's able to actually pull it off and get that team into a playoff spot above the Mets,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, like that's just a feather in his cap that I think he would really enjoy. So I would really cheer them on if they got in there. And they have very intriguing playoff style pitching that could actually allow them to get a little bit further in than people would think. So yeah, they're an intriguing team. But other than that, the Brewers are who I'm cheering for 100% because I just think while everybody like I talk to a lot of other reporters that kind of cover Major League Baseball very closely, and I always rub the salt in the wounds of a few that are so name friendly and name heavy friendly. So if they got the names, if they spent all the money, oh, they're the favorites. They're the ones that are going to win it all. They're the ones that are going to go, those types. And so I love the Brewers because, like the Rays, they go against the grain. And
Yeah.
a lot of times they're proven right. And Matt Arnold, who came from the Rays, is a huge part of that mentality and success in Milwaukee. So I admire that. I admire the fact that he has a piece of the Rays with him, and he's brought in a lot of players from the Rays because of that, because of his links, probably people he talks to. And and I like the players. I like William Contreras. I like the aura around the team. Christian Yelich has been there for a long time. He deserves to have a little bit more positivity in the playoffs, etc. So I wish them all the best. Caleb Durbin is one of the guys that I love that they brought in when they dealt Devin Williams. And he's an electric little player that I think is really helping them balance their lineup overall. And I think he's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So who are you cheering on for the playoffs?
I've got, the beginning of the year, I was thinking AL East, it's going to be Rays and Orioles at the top of the division. Geez, who was I wrong? But You know, I was enjoying watching the Brewers, especially with the Damas and Bar were there. Bars was there, but a hometown boy from Louisville, and right up the road there's Cincinnati, and seeing Ellie De La Cruz has just been a phenomenal. And Terry Francona, you gotta love Terry, and to be able to see him come to another place like that and doing so well. Yeah, I'm gonna go with you on them. I think before that, I was looking at Detroit. I kind of like what the Tigers have been doing. The Mets, just again because Pete Alonso, there's somebody I like on the team, and then they took that deep slide of like 6 or 8 games. It's like, who are we? They had to be asking. But Cincinnati, yeah, I'm with Cincinnati. Go
I think
Reds.
we yeah. Well, we called that whole slide from the Mets
Yeah,
before the season started in terms of the fact that it has to do with their pitching. And then their pitching, the investments they made in the offseason was never going to be enough and I don't think they ever really added enough beyond that to actually reload. And I think they're kind of I think ownership decided we've invested enough in this team. We need to let it ride and see how it goes. And welcome in some younger players to help us balance things out a little bit because they've realized how reckless this whole pedal to the metal thing is going to be in terms of making it hard for them to build the team for the long run, right?
yeah.
Uh, so I think that's part of what happened, and they're paying the price for it now because, wow, I don't know, but I think if it keeps going the way it is, you're going to have a new manager and a new coaching staff in New York for next
Oh yeah.
year. What's happening?
Yeah. But that's, I don't know. There's been a threat for that for so long, but changes have to be made. So we will see. Well, we hope you enjoyed yet another good time here with the good boys and girls here at Baseball Biz on Deck. And we send our well wishes to Lou Schiff and his family and grandbaby to be. Great times ahead. Lou, we wish you were here, but we're so happy you're there and having a great time, I'm sure, with everybody and maybe getting around the golf in between feedings.
I don't know if he's a cigar smoker, but if it's a healthy boy or healthy girl, you got to get out there and have a cigar outside the hospital afterwards and just bask in the glow of the fact that another one's arrived and you get to have a bigger Thanksgiving when it comes around in terms of the joy at the table. So yeah, all the best to him and his family for sure.
All righty. Well, thanks again, Matt. We're having another good time here, my friend, and we wish you all the great time. And then I'll insert the stuff here. Oh gosh, how you been? Everything going pretty well?
It's busy, man. It's that time.